setting, you're not functioning well. The director's not going to take responsibility. He's going to try to say, well, I'm sitting up here in the director's chair and I had no knowledge of this. He's a liar. I come on his chair and I had no knowledge of this. He's a liar. Every Friday and report this stuff. I know he sits there and watches that show. And we report this kind of stuff every day. I handed him a massive report on rapes that were being covered up with all kinds of evidence, emails, witnesses, all kinds of things. He refused to bring the investigator to our investigation, refused to bring the investigator, allowed his legal person, general counsel, to come in and I mean, just turn her nose up at a state house committee hearing. She was as rude as anybody I've ever seen, as unprofessional as anybody. She is a joke. She is a joke, and she should not have her position at all. And she refused to answer any questions. This is that director. He refused to answer any questions. And then when we were in the hearing, he got up and lied. So here we are in what you call a PREA, so a Prison Rape Elimination Act. We're having an investigation on these PREAs. This director gets up and says, we have the best, we have been audited and we've gotten a top audit. We are the gold standard. According to our auditor, we're the gold standard. Guess what? Frontier News interviewed that auditor, and that auditor said by their policy, they're not allowed to set standards. They're not allowed to say this one's better than that. They give you the results of what their audit is. They don't go, oh, you're better here, you're better, this one's better. They're not doing that. And he said there is no gold standard, and anybody says that is a liar. He didn't say liar. He said are not telling the truth. I call that a liar. That's me calling him a liar. I don't mind calling him a liar because he lied. Okay. But not only did he lie, but he lied in a committee hearing to where that is perjury and nobody's going to hold him accountable. And we've got him several times lying like that nobody will hold him accountable. Now, guys, that makes him, in my book, responsible. Now, what did they do? Instead, they fired the person. So the psychologist who bravely brought that to us, guess what? They fired that person. And oh, by the way, they've lost twice in court already, and they're appealing, and they're going out and hiring these high-dollar lawyers. Why are they able to pay if they already have a general counsel? That we're paying probably millions to have these general counsels. Why then is the Department of Corrections going outside and hiring attorneys at $400 or $500 an hour to defend them over falsely, wrongfully fired? Wrongful fire ought to be an easy case. That's if your general counsel can't handle that, kick them to the curb. But guess what? They've already lost twice. They're already appealing it. We can't tell you how many of these type cases they've lost, and they're appealing all these at the cost of the taxpayer, millions and millions of dollars. It's insane. It's insane. But they're not putting information out. They're stopping information. They've stopped these incident reports, like I told you. I went in and asked. So after having Marquez Ross information and seeing how they covered that up, I went back to Alan Gamble, and I went back into Alan Gamble and found 29 deaths that just have occurred last year and a half. 29, guys. The average of what we know, the National Health Office, National Health, they said the average, I was reading this the other day. I believe I'm correct on these numbers. Go back and check me. The average is 1.4 per thousand annually, yearly. 1.4. So yearly at a 1,700 bed facility, then if you said, well, we're just going to say, 3 a year, you're actually pretty high. It's less than that, but we'll call it 3 a year. Now, I went back over maybe a year and a half time period, but I'm going to go ahead and say 2 years. You see what I'm doing? I mean, I'm giving it a lot of leeway. I'm being very conservative for them. I'm giving them lots of leeway. Okay, that would be 6. So by the national average, you would have really less than 6 because we don't have 2,000 in there. We have 17. It wasn't 2 years. It was a year and possibly 6 months. But you see what I'm giving them some benefit of the doubt. 6. I found personally, just me, I found 29. That's insane. That is insane. I mean, guys, we got a third world prison going on. That prison down there, the inmates are running that prison and have been for quite some time. The gangs are running that prison. The prison knows it. They actually went down there. The leadership of DOC went down there and met with the prisoners, the gang leaders, shot callers are what they called. They met with these shot callers. So they didn't even go in and talk to the officers, to the administration. Go down there and talk to the shot callers. I've had those calls several times. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So what I did, I got these 29 deaths. I called the medical examiner. I said, hey, I'm going to send you a list of names. Would you please tell me how many of those are homicides? Okay. They sent me back 8 homicides. Said 6 or 7 of them were overdoses, a couple natural deaths, and the rest were pending. Guys, it's about half of them still pending. So you can bet there's going to be 8 or 9 more deaths, murders in there. Okay. Now, what I did, I took those 8 murders and I wrote DOC and I said, I need there. Okay. Now, what I did, I took the OIG, Office of Inspector General report. That's kind of like we used to call them, what were they? IA, we called them Internal Affairs, OIG, same thing. Internal Affairs, OIG, Office of Inspector General, same thing. So that's the group that investigates their own self. Now, guys, I just told you, in this young man that's up on there right there, Markel, in his, is it questionable how he got, that young man there, how he got to that prison anyway? That's questionable. He was in a separate cell and got moved to this cell. That's questionable. When he got moved seems to be questionable. How they reported it is questionable. Okay? But do you think they investigated anything on that? I will guarantee you they did not. They didn't do a proper investigation. They didn't look into, was he put there on purpose? Was he put there to be beaten? Was he put there to teach him a lesson? Nobody looked at that and did that lesson get carried away, and now we see what happened. Nobody even looked into that, I can guarantee you. And is that more than likely a strong possibility? I will promise you that is a strong possibility that should be investigated. They're not investigating that, because when they investigate themselves, they don't look into the real facts of the case. You can go look at their investigation. I mean, about as poor investigation as I've witnessed, at least what I'm able to get, okay? What I'm able to get, because you can't get much from them. And the only thing I'm able to get is what I can kind of sneak around and get, okay? But here's the deal. They have stopped all the incident reports. They have shut down on ICON. On ICON, they're not even reporting when officers are assaulted. Now, that means this prison over here can't get this information over here and know what's going on, even in their own system. Guys, I was talking earlier about sharing information with other law enforcement agencies. Now I'm talking about sharing information in your own agency, with the prison down the road, with other correctional facilities. Guess what? They're shutting that information down from their own officers. And again, they're deleting all of this or not entering it because they don't want the numbers. They don't want people to really know how bad this is. Now, again, that's an intentional cover up. That's why I say this director is personally responsible when he goes into these courtrooms and they start talking about, well, he's not responsible because he's far removed. That's a lie. That's not true. This guy knows what's going on. He's lying about what's going on. He has a duty to fix what's going on or to call an emergency and get the National Guard or whatever highway patrol in to help until they can get enough help or figure out how to fix the problem. But he's not doing that. He's coming out and saying, oh, no, we have an 80% retention rate. Like, oh, we got all the employees in the world. When he knows that is a flat, terrible, terrible lie. And because of that lie, people are being raped. People are being extorted. Officers are being assaulted. And murders are occurring and being covered up. All of this covered up. All of it intentionally covered up because he wants to appear like he's somebody, like he's the best thing since peanut butter. He wants, guys, he's went in and he's purchased roughly about $1 million, is my understanding, worth of uniforms to make it look like he is a general in the Army, like he's some general, like he's a 5-star general over the Department of Corrections. And people all over are laughing at him over that because he has no experience in that. And again, he's never been an officer. He's never been in the military, in my understanding. He hasn't been a correctional officer. So for him to show up at these places decked out like he's some general and to spend $1 million when they're supposed to be broke is ridiculous. But that's that narcissist in him. That is that just ego writing checks that he can't cash. And so again, he goes and makes himself, he flies all over the United States, is my understanding, going to all of these programs. Vera Institute of Justice, the last one I got that he was really bragging about being on. Guys, go look at that. You got Act Blue is one of their big supporters. Kamala Harris, all of the squad. Look at the squad, that group up in Washington that is woke and that is anti-America. That's who that group is. Kamala Harris is in it. Act Blue in it. Guess what? That's who he's bragging about. How do you have Red Oklahoma with the director bragging about being part of that? That's who this guy is. And he's flying all over, jet setting, looks like having a really good time on our check, on our dime, on taxpayers' dime. While all of this is going on, he's pretending like he's doing such a great job. And they change all these words and they make really great and wonderful, pretty words to make it sound like they've really done something when, in fact, he's not done. In fact, the worst I've ever seen in 35 years. I have been a part of the corrections, a part of the criminal justice system for 35 years. I study this about as much as anybody. And I can promise you, we are at a place I never dreamed. I would have never thought, if you'd have told me 3 years ago we could drop this low and that this kind of stuff right here would be happening, I'd have called you a liar. I'd said, there's no way, not even Harpe. I mean, nobody could be this bad. Well, guess what? I'm a liar. He can be. I was 100% wrong. I'll say it every day. I was 1,000% wrong to think it couldn't get worse. And I'm not going to say it can't get worse right now. I think it can get worse, and it continues. Again, if you looked at the last 10 days, I've got 8 reports of death. It don't get much worse than that, but could it get worse? Yeah, it could get a whole lot worse. And again, he's refusing to provide. So I put these 8. I started telling you all ago, I requested these 8 deaths. I requested the OIG report. Took me a month and a half. Now, these reports are already done. Should be you ought to be able to get them back in 2 days. No problem. A month and a half writing them 2 or 3 times. Hey, where's these reports? Where's these reports? Are you going to give me the reports? And guess what I got? I got incident reports, not investigation reports, incident reports. That's a short synopsis of the event, okay? Didn't get an investigation, what they actually did, who they checked, what, I got an incident report. And guess what those incident reports were? Redacted. They were redacted to the point you couldn't even make out the suspect's name in any of them. You couldn't find out who was responsible. You couldn't even find out what went on. It's redacted to the point. I laugh, man. They think they are something hot. Like, and all of this information, you got to realize you can go to offender lookup, and guess what? You can get that offender's information right off the internet there. So for them to pretend like, oh, this is all confidential, this is so confidential, that's a load of hogwash, okay? They used to put out these incident reports to all legislators. How all of a sudden under Harpe did they now become so confidential? Need redacting. Takes a month and a half to get them. Month and a half to put out 8 reports you already had. It took that long to redact them, I guess. I mean, how insane. How, I mean, just, you want to talk about unprofessional. And you want to talk about nobody holding him accountable. Where's the legislators? Where are the legislators at that let him get away with this? That's leadership. Leadership has allowed him 3 years to let people die. So when I say blood on governor's hand, guess what? Blood on the legislator's hand. Blood on the leadership. Blood on the leadership Senate. Guess what? Blood on the AG, because I've turned every bit of this over to the AG. Blood on his hands. All our leadership up there at Oklahoma City has blood on their hands on all of this stuff, because I have turned over gobs and gobs of information like this. But I write this, I get back redacted reports. Guess what, guys? That tells me I'm on to the right trail. That tells me that most likely they did nothing in these 8. Now, I will have to go back to the court system. I'll have to look up all these cases. Now, wouldn't it be nice if I just knew who the assailant was, who the perp was, who the guy that committed the crime? Now, I have the victim's name, just like on Braden's here. I got the victim's name. But guess what? I don't have the assailants. Now, I can find that out pretty easily, and I'm going to find that out, and I may already have it. People are sending me information. That's how I get information. But on these 8, I don't have the information. I can probably find out. I can get a good idea, or I can go to the courthouse and look up all the murders that's been turned in, and guess what? I can find out. I'm going to do that. We're going to see are they covering up these murders? Now, here's something interesting. I filed a lawsuit over the stuff we're talking about. I filed a lawsuit because DOC, get this, DOC had the audacity to send me. Now, at the time, I was the Criminal Justice and Corrections Committee chairman. Okay, so at the time, I was chairman. I'm writing, requesting records, and DOC writes me back and says, we have an agreement with House leadership that you no longer can have records. And if you want to view records, you have to come over and view them here at our headquarters. And you got to sign a non-disclosure saying you won't discuss this. Now, here's what's funny. They said the reason they're doing that is because I release non-public information, and that's these incident reports. Well, 1, I didn't get the incident reports from them. 2, I wrote them and said, hey, y'all got this problem. And they wrote me back and said they didn't have a problem, when I knew for a fact they had these incident reports and knew they had a problem, but they're covering it up. So I did release some of that to the media. And they're saying now I released non-confidential information. All right. Here's what's insane. Just a few years before that, they were sending all these out publicly to every legislator. Here I am, chairman, and I get them a different way because they won't give them to you. I get them a different way. And guess what? Now they're saying, oh, you release non-public information. Non-public information. Well, why is it non-public? Just because they declare it. Who are they to declare it? How did they come up with what is non-public and what is public when a year or 2 before that, that information was public? How does Stephen Harpe, who has no knowledge of any of this, come in and just rule, we're going to say that's no longer public information? Well, we'll go back to court and we'll let the court decide. That's what I'm going to do. So I just sued them, And again, here's what's funny. Those incident reports are about human rights violations, massive human rights violations, like we're looking at right there. Okay. Now, Mr. Harpe, Director Harpe, doesn't have confidentiality on human rights violations. Not only should you release that, if you're an officer, you have a duty to get it to somebody who can make change, who can actually take action. But here's the deal. As me, as a legislator, I also have a duty to inform. I informed the AG. He ignored it. I informed all the leadership on these stuff. They ignored it. The governors ignored it. Every one of them have ignored it. Yes, I leaked it to the media because guess what? I have a duty to let people know what's going on and to declare this a human rights violation. And again, that's what I did. And so now they're trying to keep me from having records. And I've laughed the whole time. We'll go to court and all this will come out. They're going to have to testify. And that's the reason I filed this lawsuit. It wasn't just so I could get records in the future. Yeah, that's nice. But one of the things I filed it is to expose what's going on. Guys, we have got to do something. We can no longer sit as Oklahomans knowing this is going on. Guys, you can't get it any clearer. I'm handing out pictures right now. I'm showing you what's going on. We cannot continue to allow this kind of stuff to happen to kids that could have went home. One could have went home in 2 months. Now, I know they may have messed up, but how many of y'all, I could have been in prison 100 times. I was on his old get out. I know all kinds of people that I've helped keep out of prison. And what's funny, I've helped several stay out of prison and end up getting their cases dismissed, and them end up becoming some of the best law enforcement people you ever met. You know what I'm saying? You know, I understand these guys did something wrong. I understand we need prisons. I'm all for prisons. Sent more people to prison than probably anybody you know. But we don't have murders going on in prison every day, 8 every 10 days. We don't need rapes going on every day. These kids coming out more traumatized than when we put them in there. We don't need that. That's third world country stuff. I'm sick of it. I'm calling it out. I'm tired of people, oh, JJ, you get upset. I am upset. You ought to get upset. You ought to share this video. You ought to be calling everybody and say, watch this. Look at this. It is wrong. We should demand of our legislators. We should demand of our AG. He's wanting to run for governor. By damn, he ought to look at these pictures and then answer to us why he's not doing nothing. He ought to answer why he's got all those rape things up there and didn't do anything. Claimed to have an investigation. That was the biggest lie. That is a lie. It's not true. They did absolutely nothing to investigate. And he caused more problem because he made the public think we looked into it and there wasn't nothing. That was a lie. Again, he ought to have to answer for that. I sent him these human rights violations on these other incidents. Didn't do a thing. And I've got the email where I sent it to him. And it happened. I've got the reports. I've got multiple reports. It happened. Where's he at? Where's the rest of them at? Know what they did? They shut me down, kicked me out of chairman. And that is currently our current leadership, kicked me out of chairman, closed the committee that was doing all this investigation. You think they don't have this blood on their hands? You're wrong. And I'm mad. I'm ready. I'm not mad about not being chairman. That's no big deal. Okay? Titles mean nothing to me. You want to know what means something? Do something. Do what the title gives you. I don't need a title to do what I'm doing here today. Call it out. I don't need a title to go investigate. I don't need a title to get this out to the public and say, we got to change it. Don't need a title. All you got to do is have the backbone to stand up and call it out. And I'm standing up calling it out. But I need the American people, the Oklahoma people, to say, hey, this is wrong. That right there is wrong. And if you can't see that is wrong, there is something wrong with you. If you can't look at that and that don't disturb you, you need to find some help, because that right there ought to disturb you. If that don't disturb you, there's something wrong with you, okay? And I'm telling you, it's time that we stop this. There's a mama. That guy has a mama. That guy has a family. That guy had a daddy. This is what his dad's looking at on Father's Day. That guy, Markwell had a dad. Markwell has an aunt, a mother, all of these family members that I talk to every day. And guess what? They're devastated, and rightly so. And it's time that we stop this horrific nonsense. I just can't tell you. Now, here's what's funny. Frontier News, I think we have to check, but I think they're filing a lawsuit for the same thing because they can't get information. I can't tell you how many news stations call up and say DOC won't give public information. Why are they not giving public information? Now, here's where I'm kind of, we're getting close to ending up. We're about 13 minutes, so let me wrap it up. I could go on. Hey, guys, we haven't even started. I got a report. Let me see. I'm trying to find this guy's name. I think it was Aaron Stegall. I won't swear that name is right, but I think Aaron Stegall was a guy. I believe now. I won't swear. I think that was at Lawton at one of the facilities. I believe at Lawton. He had his head cut off, and I was told wrapped in a plastic sack and shoved up under his bed. Guys, head cut off, severed, wrapped in a sack, shoved up under bed is what I was told. Now, you would think as a legislator, I could get that confirmed, but these sorry low-life people in this agency that are the administration, we got great people working down there. We'd have bigger problems than what we got. But the head of this, the director, I cannot tell you. He needs, in my opinion, he needs criminally charged, and I can lay that out on lots of things. And let me just tell you, this guy was a disaster at OMES where he was, and he was moved to the Department of Corrections. Now, I do want to tell you that I was called and asked would I put in for the director of the Department of Corrections, and I said I would want to visit with the governor first before I would do that. I will not put in a resume unless I know we're serious about cleaning this place up and what it would take to clean it up, because I would go in and fix this problem. Governor says you want to be top 10. Hey, number 2 is loser. I'm top 1. That's what I want to be. But again, the governor's not interested to be at top 10 because guess what? He never visited with me, and therefore I never put in he actually broke like 4 or 5 appointments with me. I finally said, hey, I'm not interested. If that's what you're going to do, I'm not interested. He already planned to hire this guy. This guy, his good friend, who was a failure at OMES, who has 0 experience in Department of Corrections, 0 training, 0 education, knows absolutely nothing. We were already in a pretty bad spot. Now, the former director, he inherited a lot of problems. I think I would say he held her steady. I don't think it got worse per se. I don't think it got better per se, but I think he did an okay job. I can tell you that he definitely cared about the employees and cared about the inmate. This guy claims to care about the inmate, don't even act like he cares about employees. I mean, he is a tremendous disappointment in that area. I can tell you he's terrible on employee morale. But he had no experience. He had no training. He had no nothing. And the governor put him in this very difficult situation where it would have took somebody with a lot of knowledge, and he put this clown. And I say clown on purpose. I mean, he is a clown. And he put him in, and I would never dreamed it could have come to this point. He is a disaster. He is a master of disaster. He is responsible for all of these murders, all of these rapes, all of the extortions going on, and all of the human rights violations. This guy's responsible because he has ignored it. He's lied about it. And the governor is responsible because he put him in there. And the governor knows this is going on right now and is doing absolutely nothing. The legislators know this is going on right now, and they will do absolutely nothing to stop it. That is what's going on. AG is also right in there when I'm saying all this. Every one of them. That's why I filed the lawsuit. Guys, this guy gave himself a raise. He was making $185,000. He gave himself a $90,000 raise. I've asked for any information, all the documentation that would show that he had some sort of authorization to give himself that raise. I received an open records request that said no records available. That means there's no record to show that he was authorized to give himself a $90,000 raise. Guys, that makes him one of the highest paid correctional directors in the nation with one of the smallest Department of Corrections. You get me? One of the smallest Department of Corrections, yet he is one of the top paid Department of Corrections in the nation by giving himself a $90,000 raise. I call it embezzlement all day long. Ought to be investigated, should be checked into. Absolutely. Guys, I just received information a couple of days ago that this guy was trying to get a contract done on food services. Guys, it was a disaster. If you look up this company, anywhere they go is terrible. So how would he not know that? How would he not know? Now, if you're going to privatize, they're getting away from all these private prisons, but he's going to privatize services. He's going to privatize the kitchen, the food service. All right, guess what, guys? If you have a state facility that doesn't have to make a profit to provide food service, they don't need to make a profit. They just need to get the food out. Okay, now you have a company who's going to do the same job, only they got to make a profit. That's what companies are there for, to make a profit. There's only a couple of ways they can do that. They had to cut the quality of food. They got to get cheaper food. They got to cut the quantity of food. And they got to cut the number of employees they use to present that food. That is how they make a profit. And guess what? Everywhere they've been, that's the kind of stuff that has resulted in disaster. Now, I was told that this director got caught falsifying the bids. Now, I don't know that for sure. That's what I was told. I was told OMES told him. Now, you got to get, that's kind of rich when your own department that you used to be over tells you they're not going to back you on this and you can't do it. So we got to check that out, because you're not going to get a straight answer from them. So we got to check that out to see if that is true. Maybe we can get a straight answer from OMS. We hope we can, although they haven't been really forthcoming on some other things that I've tried to work on. They would not allow me to have or give me that the Department of Corrections should have gave, then they should have gave, and neither one. Both of them go, well, that's their job. No, that's their job. And guess what? Nobody would say, hey, no, it's both your jobs, and one of you give it to us. Guess what? Never happened. Here I am over them in a elected position. Can't get that done. It is insane. And so, again, when you're asking them for these records, you know what? I mean, can you grasp what we're saying? A legislator asking, I want to know, did this director falsify because guys, if you falsify a claim, that's fraud. That's called fraud. It should be criminal. We should look into that. So did he falsify a bid? And if he falsified a bid, what's that tell the average person with an intellect over 93, an IQ? Guys, what that ought to tell you, look, if he falsified a bid, then there's something corrupt going on. Would it warrant an investigation? Hello, yes, it would. He gave himself a $90,000 raise. Would that warrant an investigation? Yes, it would. We're seeing these pictures, murder after murder, 10 or 8 in a 10-day period, 8 in a 10-day period. Guess what? If that's true, would it warrant investigation? That's going on. We haven't hit the rapes. We haven't hit the extortion. We hadn't hit the other human rights violations going on in these prisons. It is insane. Guys, I hope, would you please listen to me? Please share this video. Share this video. Call people and have them watch this video. And let's get together. I mean, let's start making the noise. Let's demand of the governor. Let's demand of our legislators. Something has to stop. Let's not wait till January or February. It'll be February when the legislators convene. Let's not wait till February at 10 days. That's it 3 times. So we could figure, that we were averaging 15 a month last year. I figured that up. 15 a month's what we were dying in our prisons. Unbelievable. About 180 a year if I had that figured right. And again, if you look at what we've got, we should have, by national average, about 31 ought to die a year. We were having 180. That ought to be reason for investigation. But if we went to this 10-day time period, hey, if we have every 10 days going like that, we're going to be out of, you know what I'm saying? We're going to be out of that zone, because if you have 8 every 10 days, that's 24 a month. You're almost doubling. You ain't quite double, but you're almost doubling if we hold steady on that 10-day course. That just double everything up. That would be insane. That's insanity. We're out of control with the numbers we had last year. Look at what we're talking about this year. Please, let's don't wait. Let's not wait and have another, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. February is almost 8 months. Let's not wait 8 months and let all these people die and continue to be raped. Let's call it out. Let's call the governor. We need to start a campaign to get this stuff ended. If you are a parent and you have a son or daughter in prison, if you have a loved one, a spouse in prison, if you have a nephew, niece, aunt, uncle, whatever, you should be getting together. You should be wearing that governor out and saying this is ridiculous and calling this out. This governor needs to see these kind of pictures. I'll probably send him pictures and say, hey, I'm tired of this. Tired of it. Governor, this is what I'm talking about. So again, I'm going to be sending these kind of things out straight to the AG, straight to the governor, and say, do your damn job. Do your damn job and quit this. That's what needs to happen. And guys, I am upset, and that's why we're having this today. And again, I know it's Father's Day, and this should be a happy occasion, and we should have a better program on. But guys, this is what's going on, and it's hard to ignore it, and it's hard to ignore it on Father's Day, because I'll tell you what I do, and I'm gonna end on this. This is what I do. When I look at one of them kids, as a father, I look at that kid and I say, what if that was my kid? I got three kids about that age right there. I got 3 kids the same age as these 2 guys I've been showing. I got 3 kids. And any one of them could mess up. Anything, guys, things can happen. I've seen cases. I'm working on cases that I believe the people didn't do it, shouldn't even be in prison. But even if they did, they don't deserve this. Guys, I want you to look at that picture and say, what if that was your kid? What would you do? And then I want you to do it. Would y'all please not sit still anymore? I hope you'll get as mad as I am and get involved. That's why I'm in the position I'm in. I'm probably going to run for an even bigger position. I'll announce that. But guys, that's why I do what I do, is right here. Hey, I hope you get involved. I want y'all to have a blessed and happy Father's Day, and I hope you'll do something.